Every month, $3 supporters at Patreon and Subscribestar get to ask me anything, and $5 supporters can give me a shout-out. So let's look at the questions supporters asked in December, and if you'd like to ask a question for this month, the links are below. Let's begin over on Patreon. Darth Vega doesn't have a question, but since he's a $5 patron, we'll call this a shout-out. Hi Shane, another change in beliefs. Within the last year or maybe year and a half, I finally got over my stubbornness and I embraced the reality of evolution. I started off as a young Earth creationist in my early years, but then I looked at the scientific evidence. The Earth can't possibly be 6,000 years old. There was no global flood. But accepting evolution was much harder. Maybe it was because people like Ray Comfort convinced me that this was a battle between God and atheism, and there was no evidence for evolution. But as the years went by, I had a realization. Why would I trust the scientists about the age of the Earth, but not our origins? Am I smarter than the countless scientists in many fields who have dedicated their lives to the study of this stuff? So Shane, I just want to say that I appreciate all you do. Don't ever give up on educating people. Some of us are willing to change our minds. I think Rhett said it best in his Deconstruction podcast episode. I'm going to follow truth wherever it leads, without fear of uncomfortable conclusions. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone. Well said. I hope you had a great Christmas and ate lots of turkey. Sid Padmanaban asks, Hey Shane, so there's this problem I've heard many people talk about regarding Airbnbs. They claim that Airbnbs and similar short-term rentals supposedly kill cities because they drive up rent costs across the board and fill cities with loud tourists, making affected areas less attractive to long-term tenants. Okay, first, basic economics. If you increase supply, what happens to price? It goes down, not up. So an increase in rentals, all other things being equal, would cause a decrease in rent. So maybe you should see who's really behind these complaints. If it's landlords and hotels and housing companies, you have your answer. Second, since when do cities complain about tourists? Tourism is a boon to cities. I don't even know what more I need to say to that. Also, it's hard to think how simply having Airbnbs would do it. I mean, tourists want to go somewhere, right? They don't just say, oh, I'll go to this city so I can stay at a nice hotel or whatever. They want to go to Disney World or have a nice stay at the beach or see whatever other attractions there are. If people are successfully running a lot of Airbnbs in a city, it's because there's demand for them. It's that demand that's driving the tourism, not the Airbnbs themselves. And finally, let's do the 12 Angry Men thing and put these two together. Let's say that Airbnbs do in fact cause rent to go up. Let's also say that there's some sort of mechanism that causes tourism to increase. Wouldn't an increase in rental costs mean fewer tourists, since it would now be more expensive for them to stay in that city? Gotta love the questions that fall apart just on a cursory examination. I've also heard that large firms buy up properties specifically to rent them out as Airbnbs, making the problem worse. For these reasons, many people claim Airbnbs and similar short-term rentals should be severely regulated or outright banned in densely populated areas of cities. What are your thoughts on this? Again, look at who's really calling for this. The enemies of the gig economy are not regular everyday people. They stand to gain from it by having more ways to earn money as well as more options as a consumer. No, they're pretty much always these big corporate shills who don't like the idea of people being able to make money on their own. They're against Uber because they're cab companies who want to make zillions on medallions. Or they're against Airbnb because they're hotels who don't want competition driving room prices down, or whatever. That's always what it ends up being. Without gig economy services like Airbnb, you're only left with big firms running hotels. So again, even on a cursory examination, it's completely self-defeating to want to oppose them since it'll mean big firms running rentals. They already are. Airbnb just levels the playing field a bit. Over on Subscribestar, Tomasz Urbański asks, Happy New Year! As the intellectual property, copyrights, and patent laws topic became hot again, I have a thought. Because it's risky to accidentally use a design or idea that other institutions might have legal rights to, and at the same time, one can lose years of research and work if another person could learn about it and legally claim it, isn't that a big factor in shaping people's behavior to not be interested in others' ideas and not be open about own-in-development ideas? Aren't copyrights, IP, and patent laws at least partially responsible for tribalization and polarization in society? If we have to be careful and not show or speak about the interesting things we do in our lives, the things that we actually are experts at, what are we left to speak about? And to be forced to remain silent when one wants to speak and talk just increases frustration and then anger. It's an excellent point. And yes, I think you're onto something. Like I recently said about AI art, it's a symptom of this misconception of art being something one does on one's own, doing totally original stuff, instead of being a global conversation of artistic expression and influence going back to the dawn of man. And that's been putting artists at each other's throats, crying about how someone stole their original work, when their work wasn't all that original anyway, is not the way to build a community of artists. Fortunately, there's a growing group of artists who are realizing that no one produces original work, and we all just do derivatives of everyone who came before us, putting our own individual flair on it. I mean, just look at a lot of art tutorials and you'll see that. They talk about looking around for inspiration on Pinterest or ArtStation or sites like that. And we see the same thing outside of art as well. Just look at how closed source software is as compared to the real sense of community you get in the open source world. There's something about the community of Blender users that just isn't there with users of Maya. And finally, Rainbow Asteroids asks, Do you adjust the volume of your headphones to a specific level when working with audio? If so, what volume? Basically, never mix on headphones. The only time I've ever heard an audio expert advocate mixing on headphones is either when it's vital to be quiet so you don't disturb anyone, or if you have crappy speakers in a bad environment. But I use reference speakers in a room that doesn't have a lot of reflections. Those movie posters you see behind me aren't just because they're my short films. I stuffed acoustic foam behind them so they'll actually cut down on room reflections. And I've got a good pair of Sony reference speakers with a subwoofer. As for volume level, just work with whatever's comfortable. That's how your audience is going to be listening anyway. The only question I've never really landed on an answer for is what volume level to mix at. Traditionally, for broadcast media, you'd want to mix the levels at minus 12 decibels. For movies, mix the dialogue at minus 9, music and sound effects at minus 18, and background noise at minus 25 to minus 40. But YouTube videos and podcasts seem to be their own animal. Mix something at minus 12 dB like the broadcast specs, and it's going to be too quiet on a lot of devices, even at their max level. On the theory that it's a lot easier to turn something down, but you can only turn it up so much, I mix with an RMS of minus 3 decibels, with, of course, peak protection at minus 0.1, and a short-term LUFS of about minus 12. If anyone knows of a sound professional giving any other advice, please let me know. Yeah, I guess you could say I'm looking for sound advice. Okay, sorry. Alright, that's it for 2022. Now there's a whole year of questions ahead of us. So until then, thanks so much for watching. Comments for the comment god, shares for the share throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell, and go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. Thanks again, and until next time, stay strong and be free.